Baby. I am in the studio with a lovely guest that you're going to meet here in just a second. But what we're first going to do, is what we always do. And we're going to get into our active listening. And the only way I know how to do that is stim it out first. So any noise, any movement you want to make, give yourself a couple seconds, embrace it, enjoy it. Woo! High pitchedness. That's what I got. So, thank you for joining me today up here in the studio at Denver Community Media. How is your spirit today, friend?
Good. First of all, thank you for having me. I was surprised and delighted to be invited to do this. Like transparency, my spirit's a little kind of all over the place today.
I love it.
It's like, you know, that anxiety, that like, it's the artist life, like what's next kind of thing going on in my brain right now. But I'm happy to be here, and it's a beautiful day, and I am still employed for now. So I'm happy about
I like it. Okay, so Mel, I'm just meeting you for the first time, but I got to witness your magic first. So I'm going to dive right into this really quick, okay? We're going to go into it. And thank you again for being here. Big shout out to Leslie. You know who you are. I love you. Anyway, so I got to witness your magic on stage opening night for Dracula at Arvada Art Center. Now, talk to me about why this play itself spoke to you and it was something you wanted to try out.
Oh my God. I remember they do like the season announcements of like all of the theaters all over. And I looked at the season announcements and I was like, okay, the one play that I want to do, if I don't get into any other play, I want to be in Dracula because I love Kate Hamill. She's the writer. She adapts all these feminist versions of like, you know, Jane Austen, or she's done Little Women or Dracula, like things that are from way long time ago. And Dracula was not feminist when it was written at all. And reading the play and seeing these like the silliness of it, like the campiness of it. I loved that. And I loved the subversion of religion in it. Like we have the Our Father who art in earth. I love that. So it was just that. I was just so drawn to it and really wanted to be a part of it. And horror's not even my thing, but I was like, this is amazing. So yeah.
Well, now tell me, okay, so first of all, it is an incredible play. You all did spectacular, or should I say spooktacular? But it was amazing. And your character, obviously, because Leslie made this connection here, because I really liked I guess, were they Dracula's brides?
Yeah,
or how?
yeah,
I don't want to
brides.
misgender them either, too, because
like,
I didn't know.
I don't know. It's a thing with my gender. I use they, them, or they, he pronouns.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. I love playing characters across the entire gender spectrum.
I love it.
That's my favorite thing, is to just go all over the board.
Yeah.
So I like playing feminine characters. And these characters, they're the brides of Dracula. They're spooky, scary monsters, and are really, they themselves are putting on the role of woman, which I love that. There's like that whole line, the whole thing throughout the play of not a woman, not a man. And for me, I was like, oh, well, that's a trans narrative right there.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it's just fun to put on like what every human does every day, is like put on a gender, which is exactly what those characters are doing.
Yeah. Well, you did a phenomenal job with this character. I was just saying how I was going to, you know, take some of the essence of how you created this character, the development that this entire, you know, entity that you brought into this play just really sparked me, because I'm going to be in a fashion show where I need to have kind of like this like dark Jack Sparrow-y kind of, you know, like energy, and just the way you were like, I don't know, the way you like cosplayed in your body, basically. It was really, it just, I don't know, it was very liberating to like I was living vicariously
Hey.
through that. So thank you.
Thank you. That's very kind to say. Like it's good to have that affirmation of like, okay, the work you're doing is reaching out to people and connecting.
Well, you did in that play, because I think you know, folks could look at it like, okay, these are the main folks, but the entire audience felt something, and I don't want to spoiler alert anything, but there was a moment in which the the rawness of the character was exposed.
Yeah.
And everybody felt it in the audience. I mean, I had people being like, "Aw," you know,
Yeah.
and it
Okay,
was like a
cool.
really brilliant buildup, you know.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like, I know that within the plays right now, like Waitress, I think is closing out this weekend.
Yeah.
So you had two very like beautiful feminist plays going on. So just the essence of Arvada Art Center right now is fire.
Yeah.
I am so here for it. But just as a audience member and my art form being observing and honoring other folks' art, you did an incredible job, and it captivated the audience because that was the guttural reaction of what came across. So just know that. And I know it happens every time because that play is fire. And I will be seeing it again.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, for what the Arvada Center is doing right now, you can thank Philip Sneed, the president, and Lynn Collins, who's the artistic director. Lynn is so on it and so passionate about doing these really kind of envelope pushing works, and it's really exciting to see this stuff happen.
I'm loving this, friend. I just want to make sure I'm on the right cameras. Look at us. Okay.
Yeah, here we go.
I get to hang out with, like, again, how I met Leslie and came into that whole world, and we were just talking about this outside, was that things just didn't seem like obtainable or like I would have never saw myself going to plays or you know any of that, but I met somebody that you know has a compassion or an understanding towards my neurodivergency, and quite honestly, it's been like the best thing for my brain to see live plays. It does something to me to be in that live audience setting and to just feel that palpable energy from every character. And so I just have such a deep appreciation for what I've been shown there, as well as the community that's coming out of it and how safe I feel in that environment. You know, like I go in there and I get to see, you know, the costume designer, you know, Claire's so sweet, you know, and from everybody that you just entering the space and anybody that's holding tickets or, you know, directing where you're going, there's just like such a, I don't know, a nurturing.
Yeah.
I don't know what else, like just a nurturing energy. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to grow here. I don't know what's happening.
I mean, theater is where the baby queers go. Like that's where I went, and I was talking with my,
I wish I knew that.
Yeah, I was talking with my partner about this, who's a trans man, and he was like, well, theater, I have a lot of friends who, for them, theater wasn't a really accessible space. And I was like, I totally understand that because everywhere has a lot of work to do. You know, this is the world we live in. But also for me, it was so affirming. I was cast as boy parts or male parts most of my childhood. So it was so affirming for me to be in that space. And that doesn't change when you get older. You just grow up and you're like, okay, but I still need that space. And nurturing and affirmation and all the, because that's where the queers go. The queers go to the theater. Like, that's kind of what.
I didn't know. Now
welcome.
I do.
You are, yeah.
Maybe one day, I mean, I'm getting so inspired. I'm like, even if I could be in the background watching everything switch, or when it gets dark, I'll pull stuff off the stage, you know?
Oh my God, you absolutely should.
It's
just being a part of it. Like, I've done more backstage stuff than I've done on stage stuff. That's where
I think that you're going to be on stage a whole lot more, if that's the goal. I mean, is that your goal?
Partial, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I want to be in film. I want to be in TV. I want to be more on stage. More. I've only been back in Colorado for a year, so I'm like, still baby steps here. But
so speaking of baby steps, really quick, I have to know, what would your younger self say to you right now in this moment? Like, and I want to say single digit self, because you said like 8 when you were younger. So like the single digits, what would that version?
this is going to sound so cheesy, but
I love
live
cheese.
my life for my younger self. I am constantly checking in with my single digit self to say, okay, what would this tiny human be proud of?
Right.
And that tiny human would be so proud of me. Like, how I express myself, how I live my life, being paid. Like, this is my first paid gig where it's like actually paying, you know, there's like stipends and whatever, but like this is my first gig where it's like, okay, you are being paid this amount per week to do this job. And my younger self would be, and for this show too, like all these characters all across the gender board playing monsters, like so excited, all the fake blood, so just living for my younger self.
Yeah.
And that's actually a really good reminder, because that's why I felt, when you're not in tune with your younger self,
Yeah.
you start to get anxious and in the future space. And thank you for that reminder to check in with that tiny human. So, yeah.
I know they're very thankful for that right now too. But I think a lot of times that we don't realize, especially as queer folks, just in the world that may have had us a little skewed of the own view of ourselves. Regardless of the age that we're coming up on, there's still, things that we exist in, like hatred ways, or or denial of self ways, in essence. And so just that you've been able to find this space within Arvada Art Center and be like, give yourself a moment to like co-parent with your parents, or if they're in the picture or not, or that version of them, and be like, hey, my parents may not have saw how valuable of a child I was, and maybe they did, but I'm still going to come back and remind you from myself that I approve of what you're doing. You're killing it. Like you're making it.
It's so funny. I struggled with my parents when I was growing up, and now they're like bigger support systems than I am to myself. Like,
I love this.
My dad the other day was like, I'm not worried about you. You're fine. I'm like, are you sure? Are you positive?
You were nurturing them the whole time.
Yeah, it's been a really beautiful kind of growth. And I feel really lucky as a queer person to have, not when I was younger, but now, like the best situation I could hope for.
Yeah.
With my parents. Like they're amazing.
And that sounds obviously very supportive. You spoke of a partner, and so that partnership must be adored and honored by your family as well.
Yeah.
I'm so here for it.
It's pretty great.
This is brilliant. Okay, so that's what you'd say to your younger self, like, thank you got me here.
Yep.
We doing it. Okay, so then you were saying baby steps into, because you did a lot more like background back in the day.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
Yeah. And I have a wonderful rep out in LA who's like, she came out for the show last weekend, which is so lovely.
Was it opening night too?
No, she didn't come for opening night.
Oh, okay.
But she came just last weekend. For just to, take
root
me
for
out to
you,
dinner.
honey.
Yeah, exactly. It was just wonderful. And she's like, this career takes a decade to build. And I graduated in 2020. So I'm like, and pandemic and all that stuff. So I'm like, I feel like I'm just starting to build what I want to build. And I also feel that what I actually want to build doesn't exist in the world yet.
I love it.
It's a long time, but it's like, those little tiny steps that feel like they're building up to something. Hopefully.
I mean, you are speaking to my whole heart space with that, because I think we were talking about age just a few minutes ago, and you were, stating, like, I just turned 40 and I'm barely like in this space of like, whoa, I think I'm actually laying a foundation that matches like me and what my personality is, what my goal is, what my understanding of self is, not what it could be. Like, I know I'm understanding my power now. And so I'm never a person that believes that you are a late bloomer. I just think you show up when you show up, and you're ready when you're ready. Because I think when we are always implying being late to something that we missed out, so we create our own FOMO all the time,
right?
And I'm like, I have enough FOMO as it is, just with the characters in my brain. I'm like, man, you made me miss out on that. But so just the brilliance too behind like the neurodivergent self is, it takes us a while to understand our personalities, and society isn't super open, hasn't been. Like, we've definitely entered a different era of that, being a little bit more open, but still having these spaces of masking. And so the dichotomy of trying to navigate that while remaining employed and goal driven, baby.
Yeah, it's it's the checking in with my younger self thing, right? Where I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay true to myself no matter what. And with neurodivergence, the remaining employed thing is the thing that kind of falls on the wayside, because I'm like, well, this is going to, if I take this, 9 to 5 office job, it's going to burn me out in 2 months, and I'll be burnt out for 10 months from that. Like, do you know what I mean?
Baby.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like building those little tiny, like, puzzle piecing those little tiny things together to make a life that I feel like I'm definitely still working on.
Absolutely.
But as far as like who I am, how I show up, I'm like, okay, cool. I know that about myself at least. And it took me 30 years to figure it out, but here we are.
So brilliant though, friend. I think that's incredible. I think also a testament that like just to hear someone stand in their power and be like, no, I got this, like this part. It's just these other outside things, you know, and to just like that you have like the compartment for them. And I think that there are times that I can't, everything is just one big jumble. And then sometimes everything is so intricate and separate, you know, but you sound like, I mean, you seem in the ebb and flow and the essence of just like, it's existing and I'm here. And
it always works out.
It does.
Eventually, it'll
Isn't
always
it
work
weird
out.
that it does?
Yeah.
And it's like something that was so crippling. We're like, oh God, like I can't move. I can't make a decision. I'm quite literally like in a paralyzed state of, you know, functioning for myself.
Yeah.
You know? So I wonder in neurodivergency, do you think that it's been easier for you to have the time to like character development within a play setting? Do you think that makes it a little bit easier, or do you think that sometimes maybe you get in your head a little bit too much?
Totally in my head. Totally in my head.
I just
like
want,
that's
because
so,
you created this character I love on stage, but I'm like, what was the process to get you there?
yeah, it's been actually this has been one of the hardest plays that I've been part of like in a while, because I mean, it's a lot of movement. I have a movement learning disorder as well.
Okay.
So it took me a long time to learn all that fight choreo and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And my
I would've
sister
never.
wife is like gymnast, yogi, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to be able to do the back walkover and whatever, all of that. Like, that's not
The
me.
ball chain switch tap.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So that was difficult. Doing 3 different accents. I do Romanian, Yorkshire, and Glaswegian Scottish in this play.
Okay.
Which is like, that's its own thing.
Yeah.
And then the building of 3 different characters that are wildly different. I'm really grateful for this long run, because I feel like I'm just starting to figure out these characters like now, and we're halfway through the run, because it's just so much, and I have gotten in my head about it. I've been like, okay, it's the first paid gig, like, am I doing it right, all this stuff. So yeah, good catch there. Like, I'm totally in my head, and I think it's the neurodivergence of like, okay, I'm masking but not too much, and like, how much of the neuro can I show, like what's appropriate in the workplace, because that's something we as neuro people do not understand. Is like, where does this part of my personality go?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So it's been a lot of that, and like figuring out the balance, and like, you know, it's also this career, especially in a small community, how you do in your last job determines what happens for your next jobs. So it's like that added
That
pressure.
is very wild.
Yeah. And everyone's so kind and everything, but there's still that voice in the back of your head that's like, okay, am I clicking with these people enough? Like, am I talented enough? Am I working hard enough? Am I, you know, all of the things.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, just what you did on stage, to me, phenomenal. It's like a thing that I don't feel that I would have the wherewithal to be such a character developed person. I think that I'm just amazed seeing that type of art, because I think it's so fascinating. And as a neurodivergent person that came up more in a realm that it was never recognized or sought after to figure out more about myself, masking that space really took me away from having a personality at all as a young person. And so again, I don't like calling things late. I'm just like, I get to discover that about myself now. And I think, you know, obviously, like, nurturing spaces too. So Arvada Center being something that's a very nurturing energy, I just see a lot of brilliance coming out of there. Whereas I've been to other spaces where there's, you know, the success should be rampant and amazing, but the stress of the environment and the lack of of that nourishing energy isn't there. So people are dropping off like flies. They don't want to do it. You know, they're exhausted. They burn out, and the character development isn't there. But I think as neuro folks, there has to be obviously that very, like, you are seen and heard for you, so that when you are acting and you become very much that part, because we love to cosplay, because we've masked our whole lives.
Exactly.
that we're safe to do that. We're not going to get judged for that. So you did a brilliant job. I just have to keep giving honor, baby.
Thank you. I really
Yes,
appreciate that.
absolutely. So I do want to just ask like a couple more questions if you're okay about like family. Is this something that falls far from the tree, or are family members also involved in arts? Like, what was the accessibility you had to that?
I mean, I had a lot of accessibility growing up because I grew up in Boulder, which is like, you know, it's a lot of art people.
Okay.
There's a lot of art people, so I got that access. My immediate family, like my mom is a ultrasound tech. My dad is a computer scientist. My brother is an accountant. Like, it's not
I love
in
this.
the immediate
Okay.
family. But my cousin has been a performer for most of her life. My aunt is she's like I don't even know how to do. She does a lot of improv. She does a lot of like devising performance art kind of stuff. So it's like in the family, and there was always from my grandparents an appreciation for the arts. Like my grandfather, who passed back in May, had like a beautiful appreciation for old Hollywood movies. My grandparents on the other side were like very cultural. They went to the symphony and that kind of thing. So like, it's definitely a part of my family, but like the actual doing of it and the specifically the art that I'm doing is not. Yeah,
it's uncharted.
It's mostly just me.
I love that. Okay, so they were like the observers of art, and then you were like, I want to be the art.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to tell stories. That's my main thing is I just love telling stories. So, yeah. That's what it is.
Are you going to start telling your story then?
I
love what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah, I like, it's that thing where like everyone else has, I feel like there's so many other people with much more interesting stories than I have. Like, you know, we all have our thing, but
I think my story is really boring too.
Yeah.
But like we could sit across the table and be like, I think you're fascinating.
So there you go.
You know?
Yeah, it's always you see from the outside the other person.
So maybe you have to just like see yourself as multiple different entities so you could tell stories about yourself.
Well, rather than telling stories about myself, I'm more interested. I'm writing I'm world building like a fantasy world right now with allegories to the modern world.
Okay.
Focused on the idea of like truth versus illusion, which I think is really important right now. Like there's a lot of illusions that are accepted as truth, and there's a lot of truth that is dismissed as illusion right now, especially in regards to the queer and trans community. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So my focus, because I want something that is universally reaching across like party lines, across, you know, different belief systems, that kind of thing. I want to build a world, and I think you can only do that in fantasy, where people are like, well, it's not real. But then they feel the feelings of what is actually happening to them in the real world just through the guise of a fantasy world. So that's the story that I'm working on right now.
I love this, friend. Okay. You do be in your art form. Shoot. What other things, like, to be in an art form like this where you are giving so much of yourself and you're also letting a character be yourself sometimes? What do you find to be a good way to recharge that, or to be able to sit with yourself and acknowledge the work that you're doing, the characters that you develop, that you eventually will have to say goodbye to? What is that like?
I kind of carry every character I've ever done with me.
Oh, I love this.
Because that's how you grow as a human and as an artist. Like, you take what you've learned from those characters. So, like, the boldness of Drusilla, like, she and Marilla are just bold characters. The masculinity of the Miller character, taking that, like, I just take it with me. But as far as like letting go of things, I can't right now because I have jumper's knee, just like tendonitis in your knee from this show.
Damn it.
But I usually will go out into the forest. I'll go on a very long hike, that kind of thing, because that reconnection with nature is so important to me and my mental health. It's like the thing that keeps me grounded. No pun intended, but
I love intended puns.
Very definitely intended. But I don't ever get rid of these characters because they stay with
That's
me.
really beautiful. Yeah. I've never, because I always wonder, especially like, I've never been super fascinated like with Hollywood or anything like that. but because it's like so force fed to us, I know a lot about pop culture that I don't like. It's such pointless information.
Sure.
But one of the things that's really stuck out to me, simply because it helps me not have FOMO, is that most of the actors, they end up having like really distressing lives at some point because of the characters they take on and the roles that they fill. And then it's like that character's done, and so like who is left,
Right.
you know? And so
Right.
I'm always so curious about that in any type of acting, even when it comes to like people putting on facades, whether, you know, neuro folks do it for certain good reasons, but there's other mental illnesses that we, you know, we can't read on very well sometimes because of that. So I'm always so fascinated by the characters that we are, the characters that we choose, the characters that we build, you know? It's just a really fascinating world.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Well, like Hollywood, I used to love, and now I'm like, I don't know about it. Like, there's so much that's coming out about it, and I don't necessarily want any more screen time.
Right.
You know what I mean? I want things to be live. I want things to be in person. You were talking about the energy that you felt in theater. I wrote my senior thesis in college on the poet Andrea Gibson, who's local here.
Oh, yeah.
And their performance of The Nutritionist
Mm-hmm.
with what seemed to be a very queer-focused audience and a very not queer-focused audience, and how the role of the audience is half of the battle.
Right.
Like, it is literally half of the recipe for the magic that is live art. So I don't want any more. We have enough screens. We're always looking at screens. Like, most people work a 9-to-5 job looking at screens every day, and I want to bring people back into the world and have it be, they can be immersed in the beautiful, like, sets and whatever, but I want it to be live. I want people to experience.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I'm coming out of a space where I had to be more in screen time and on a phone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's a different world when you're not. Even when you cut it down by an hour or two, you're like, whoa, like, I could see leaves and I smell something. I think it's autumn, you know? But yeah, I just was so very curious about, you know, the characters that we take on or that you've taken on. And I just think that is very poetic, that you're like, I carry them always. Yeah. That's really beautiful. It's amazing. Gosh, you're dope. All right. So I just, it's been an interesting space too for me to kind of like navigate and be this open as a queer and neurodivergent person that's like quite honestly discovering life that's always been here, but through the lens of acceptance.
Yeah.
And the community's been the biggest thing. And so I guess what I really want you to know is that some days you may not feel like there's like this purpose to what you're doing, but you impacted my life to the point where I'm going to mimic some of your behavior to do a show because it sat with me in such a profound way. Yeah. And sitting in this conversation where you sparked ideas and you enlightened my spirit on understanding another person's perspective and living with the different types of neurodivergency, and even speaking like how you just spoke to that you have like a movement learning disability. I went to like, I feel like I have rhythm. Like I you know, I can sway a little bit and I'll like dance. I went to an Afrobeats class because that's like where a lot of my inspiration of just like the music comes from. So I go to this class. They're like counting out. I can't dance when it's counted for shit. Yep. I don't understand. Like, she showed me 10 times and then was like, do it. And I couldn't do it. Yep. But then if I'm on my own, like I'll have my own rhythm and it's like, wow, you can dance. Count it. I can't. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like coexistence of the disorder I have is called dyspraxia. There's coexistence of autism spectrum disorder or neurodivergency with dyspraxia. So
this is brilliant. I love the spectrum.
I know, it's wild.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so cool. I just love that life in general is a spectrum. But, you know, the essence in which we have to be these citizens in this governed society is like a little hard sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like you know, a neurodivergent person having to have a 9-to-5 job. I will pull my head off and lop it or punt it.
Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm a shell of a person, or I'm quite literally I could turn into like a robotic AI because like I can't do that. And I used to compare myself a lot, you know. And even to the point where it was like giving myself this comparison of like, well, people are better off or they're better than me because they have this home or they have this type of lifestyle. And then you just see how masked up they are and how sad they are. And then I'm like, whew, I still have a roof. My car is running.
Yeah.
And, you know, but I'm confident to know that I will be able to take a deep breath and make it through the next step versus having that unraveling that happens, you know?
Yeah.
It takes us a long time to get here. So since we've been just like sitting in this conversation and now like I'm so curious and we're going to have to sit again. We're going to have another one of these because this is amazing.
I would love that. I was just thinking that. Great.
Like, please, like this can't be the only one. I just again want to say thank you so much for your time and coming down to the studio. Shout out to Denver Community Media. If you do not know about Denver Community Media, go to their website, denvercommunitymedia.org. And there is so much opportunity and a lot of price inclusivity. It doesn't drain your bank to learn how to do these things. Okay? So I just want people to know. Representation, you can do it. If I can, you can. So I just had to give that little moment. But since sitting here in this like really reflective space and how you've spoken to and about yourself and the things that you've gone through, now, what would you say? Now, what would you say after you reflected for a little bit? What would your younger self say to you right now?
I think they'd say, I cannot believe you did it. Like you're living the dream right now. I think that's what they'd say, which is so cool to think about. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
It's really profound.
Yeah.
You have a really beautiful essence of your spirit, and it's just a very welcoming representation that I don't think a lot of folks get to experience, you know.
So kind. Thank you for saying that. I needed to
so
hear that today.
You got this. So yes, again, just giving honor where it's due. Thank you so much for being here. Would you mind letting everybody know where they could find you, or maybe the play that you're in?
Yeah.
How about that?
So I am not a social media human. I am working on building a website. We'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But the play, please come see it. We close November 3rd. It is Dracula, a feminist revenge fantasy, really, at the Arvada Center for Arts and Humanities. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And outside of that, you can, this podcast, if you want to watch it, it'll be on YouTube. If you want to listen, it's streaming where streams stream. Okay?
Cool. Great.
But with all of that, thank you again for sitting here. It was just so lovely to be in your countenance.
Thank you for having me.
And just like, I don't like saying like, keep doing that thing, but just like, the way you are existing is a really beautiful and profound thing to witness. So keep doing it. I'm just giving honor where it's due. It says receive, enjoy. And thank you for sitting here.
Thank you.
You're welcome, friend.
Wonderful.
So we're at the end, y'all. We're at the end. And I just want to say thank you for sitting with us for this spell. And we're going to have more episodes coming. Go peep Dracula. Also, tune into Arvada Art Center. They have amazing events always going on there, too. And Denver Community Media, because we like to keep things community, y'all. All right. So with all of that being said, just remember to continue creating earnestly in love. And I'll see you soon. Bye. We did that, friend.
That was lovely. Oh, my God. Thank you.